event. And Reggie Ruggiero breaks more than ice at Thompson. And who was the bad guy in the Winston Racing Series Modifieds as two-car tangled and one went on to win? And Brian Danko takes a look at qualifying for the Modifieds as the dirt season gets kicked off in New York. One year ago here at the Thompson International Speedway, Icebreaker 1989 was put to the test. And the car that I'm standing next to is Mike Stefanik's. And here, just 1 year ago, this car went end over end. But from the Thompson International Speedway, it became the car to beat on the NASCAR Winston Modified Tour. Hello, I'm Ben Dodge, and I welcome you to this, the special Icebreaker edition of Raceweek. Well, in this edition of Raceweek, the Thompson International Speedway is 50 years old, and we're going to be showing you one of the events on the NASCAR Winston Modified Tour. The car that I'm seated on, the left front wheel, is Mike Stefanik, defending champion of the NASCAR Modified Tour. And the car that's located next to me is Ricky Fuller. He was the fastest car in the house to win the Busch Pole Award. Today, these two men and 30 cars that follow will try their skills to win Icebreaker 1990 here at the Thompson International Speedway. But the racing action will still be impressive, as there's 4 additional divisions of excitement. The Pro Stocks, the excitement of the Pro 4, Mini Modified division, the best in late models, and much, much more. But now it's time to see who is the best of the NASCAR Winston Modified Tour. It was a typical Icebreaker event, but the mighty NASCAR Modifieds were ready to go the distance. When Sunday's weather conditions cleared up for a while, it would be time to go racing. But the qualifying would be the story from Sunday afternoon. Time trials only would determine the starting lineup for the qualifying heats. And when round number 1 came around, it was Ricky Fuller, who was the fastest car in the house, with a time of 19.759 to lead the field in a turn number 1. In the first qualifying event, Tony Ferrante would look strong on the bottom, then Satch Worley, who crashed in time trials, would thread the needle and get to the front. It was still Ricky Fuller who'd hold on desperately to secure the win. Tony Hirschman was in for second, and Reggie Ruggiero would round out the top 3. Round number 2 would see the defending champion Mike Stefanik to the inside of Jamie the Jet Tomeno. In a turn number 1, the two would battle impressively, with Stefanik taking advantage of the inside groove. Then suddenly, off the turn, Tom Baldwin would falter just a bit. George Brunholzer would return to the competition in a brand new car. Car number 28 would try to challenge to the inside. Jeff Fuller was making the bottom groove work as he moved to the inside of Jamie Domeno to try to take over second. The two would battle lap after lap when further back in the pack, Tom Baldwin would get out of shape with the two brothers number 7. He would spin, gather it back together, and try to get back to the front of this field. When things were back at green conditions, trouble would develop in turn 1. Tommy Bowles would slam the wall hard after contending in the top 5 with car number 76. The fans anxiously awaited as Bowles would remove himself from the automobile. Bowles was okay and would later rejoin in the competition with a backup automobile. It was still mighty Mike Stefanik to set the pace. Jeff Fuller was hunting him down, but at the checker, it was Stefanik to take down the win. Jeff Fuller was in for second, and Jamie the Jet Tomeno would finish in third. The third qualifying round saw Carl Pastriak and the Coors Silver Bullet machine set the pace over Eddie DeHaan off turn number 4. It was car number 21 for George Kent who put some pressure on, and later Phil Rondo would run strong just out of the top 7. But back at the front of the field, it was still a battle for the lead. Kent would work his way to the inside, but DeHunt would hold on for second as Carl Pastriak would take down the win. But now it would be time to go the distance. The feature event of 100 laps for the NASCAR Winston Modified Tour. $3,000 would await the winner of this event. The weather conditions were cold. The strategy of the teams was about to be put to the test as we asked Rick Fuller.
Basically, it's 100 laps. The weather is really playing havoc with us. We're not sure just exactly how the pit strategy is going to go, if we're going to have to come in or not. We're hoping that we don't. We're hoping we can take it wire to wire, and I guess time's going to tell.
It was now time to go racing, and Rick Fuller would be starting to the inside with Mike Stefanik as the field would come to green. Off the 4th turn, it would be Stefanik who quickly jump out in front, but Rick Fuller would give him a run for the money. Deep into the turn, Hirschman would already challenge early, but Stefanik would set the pace down the back straightaway. three cars strung out at the front of the field would tell the story. Then Jamie the Jet Tomeno would make a bold move to the outside as he would contend just out of the top 5. It was Jeff Fuller who looked strong in the bottom as Tomeno was a little bit out of shape when the Reds would pick up a spot with car number 44. Then suddenly Mike Stefanik developed an engine problem as car number 15 would pull out of the event. But Mike Stefanik wouldn't be the only driver who'd have problems on this day. Brian Ross and Scott Watts would come together as both cars were severely damaged, bringing out yet another caution. For Brian Ross, this would be the second time out, with destruction the story in both outings for car number 69. As the field went back to green, it was Rick Fuller now in command. Hirschman was now running an impressive second, and DeHunt was setting in the third spot. Challenge was on for fourth. Moving to the outside was Jamie Tomeno. The Reds was getting hitched up when another mix-up would occur. Richard Savory and Rusty Ball would come together, and that would bring out yet another caution. While the two cars were being separated, it appeared that the Savory car had suffered the most of the damage. Back down on pit road among the first cars to pit was third-place runner Eddie DeHunt with car number 9. But when it was back to green, it was Hirschman who was putting heavy pressure on Rick Fuller at the front of the field. George Kemp was trying to run the outside as Tomeno was working it down low. Further back in the pack, Mike Ivanitsko was trying to hold off Satch Worley as Larry Moore was running the bottom group with Doug Walcott running strong to the outside with car number 48. Then another mix-up would occur. Brian Caruso, Ed DeHunt, and Tony Ferrante would come together. Back at the front of the field, it was now car number 8 for Jeff Fuller who was getting dialed in. Rogerio was still running very strong with car number 44 as Ivanitsko was hunted down by Charlie Rudolph with car number 72. Then Ivanitsko would cut a right front tire as he would head back to the pits. Down the back straightaway, Tommy Bowles and Brunhosel would come together as they two would go spinning, and then the Reds would slam the wall hard with the Magnum number 44. Reggie Rogerio, while contending for the third spot and moving to the front of the field. Once again, the field was under caution. A severely damaged number 44 was now being brought back to the center of the infield. But back up front, Ricky Fuller, who was running strong, had cut a right front tire on car number 77. The car had almost come to a complete stop in turn number 4 when the caution came out. And as they raced back to the line, Hirschman beat him back and literally put Rick Fuller a lap down on the field. Fuller was down on pit road. His team was ready to replace the right front tire when suddenly it was Charlie Pastriak whose car literally went up in flames, as Charlie Pastriak's heated day had suddenly ended. But back at the front of the field, more heated action as Hirschman was the leader of the pack. Then suddenly Larry Moore would go around with car number 63. A mad scramble here, and once again a cut tire was the story. And so wasn't the story the same for Carl Pastriak with car 75. But as the event was coming to the wire, it was still Hirschman in command. Tomeno would try to reel him in, and George Kemp was looking just as strong with car number 21. It was then Jeff Fuller who'd reel in the front 3 cars. As the checkered flag was out, it was Hirschman to take down another impressive victory. Jamie Tomeno would finish in second over George Kent in third, Jeff Fuller in fourth, and Doug Everon to round out the top 5. 6th through 10th would go to Satch Worley over Charlie Rudolph, Tom Bowles, Doug Walcott, and Bobby Park. It was a $3,500 victory for Tony Hirschman.
Well, I think the part that most guys went with too soft the tires, and after a few laps the tires just give up, and they were just riding. They knew they had to save their tires, to get to the end, and I think that's what part of the problem was.
Even though you had a comfortable lead, you had quite a battle going on behind you. Were you able to catch much of it?
I could see him from behind on them restarts, and I seen Jamie was running pretty strong, and George, but then I seen George was all over the back of Jamie, and I figured he would have to protect his spot, and then I just pulled away to a few car lengths lead, and that's just where I rode.
Now that the checkered flag has fallen here at the Thompson Speedway on the modified tour race, we'll have to take a commercial break, and we'll be back for more green flag racing right after this.
Welcome back to Race Week. Well, next we're going to be taking a look at more great racing action here from the Thompson International Speedway. The Winston Racing Series Modifieds are up next, and so aren't the pros. The Pro 4 late models and a whole lot more. The Winston Racing Series Modified feature event would be 30 laps in distance. Jeff Berry would be starting to the inside of Bo Gunning as the field would rumble off turn number 4. Mike Christopher and Ron Rocco, driving the former Bob Potter machine, would make up the second row. Into turn number 1, Jeff Berry was the leader. Mike Christopher dropped to the inside, then suddenly a challenge for the lead. It was Ron Rocco who would challenge Berry off turn number 4. They'd come off pretty much evenly matched, but Berry would take and maintain the number 1 spot. Then, all of a sudden, it was car number 1 for Bo Gunning who'd get up in the loose stop and tag the wall with the back end of car number 1. Back at the front of the field, there was a new challenge once again. This time again for position number 1. It was the Rock on the bottom. Jeff Berry still glued to the outside. Contact was made and Berry would go around and Rocco would get away. Mike Christopher would be also involved in this mix-up with car number 82. But for Berry, he'd be forced to do it from the back of the pack. And Mike Christopher would head back to the pit area. He had suffered the same type of damage during qualifying on Saturday. It was back to green, and Ron Rocco was the star of this show. But Teddy Christopher, who'd come from the back of the pack, had threaded the needle now into the top 5. Tommy Tagg was looking very strong, when suddenly it was Ted Christopher who'd take over position number 2 with a bold, aggressive move to the bottom. Lloyd Agar was looking exceptionally strong with car number 12, when Jeff Berry would spin once again off turn number 4. Down the back straightaway, Agar was a little bit out of shape with car number 12, while the field was under caution. Back up front, it was Ted Christopher now challenging Ron Rocco for position number 1. The Rock was setting the pace out in front, but Christopher was really working him over, and Lloyd Agar was patiently waiting in the wings. Down the back straightaway, Christopher would reel him in. Rap tap to the bumper, the story was here. Bull move to the inside, and contact was made. Ted Christopher and Ron Rocco, first, second, and now third for Lloyd Agar, was now involved in the mix-up. Steve Shawanski was also involved, and so was in several other cars, including Moose Hewitt and Turcotte with car number 16. And with this type of a situation, there's always controversy, as both drivers felt that they weren't even the fault.
Well, just, you know, it's pretty bad the whole weekend. We set fast time, and then first lap of the heat race get taken out, go back home, fix the car. The front clip was all banged up, changed the motor, changed the clutch in it. Then I haven't slept for 2 days, and you know, then to start last and come all the way up through, we were clearly the fastest car there. And then to have him drive that way, you know, to block me, you know, he knew I was the fastest car, but he just did not want me to beat him.
I didn't get to see what happened. He came from behind. It's his famous move. He cuts to the bottom and he gets you in the door. I ran several laps under Berry the same way. If you can't hold the nose down, you just get on the brakes a little and you can keep from hitting a guy. But Teddy likes to try to antagonize you and get you out of the groove so he can get it. And I didn't even know he was there. You know what the race car's going to do, especially if you're as good as Teddy Christopher. But if he can't win, he don't want nobody to win.
When the field went back to green, Lloyd Agar was placed back at the front of the field, and Tommy Tagg would challenge. Bob Potter would get crossed up and out of shape with car number 51 and slide down through the center of the infield. But as the field was under green, it was Lloyd Agar holding on for position number 1. Tom Tagg was pressured heavily by Mike Christopher. As they rumbled off the 4th turn down to the wire, it was Lloyd Agar who'd take down the impressive victory. Tom Tagg in for second over Mike Christopher, Jeff Berry, and Reggie Ruggiero in Glenn Sullivan's car.
That's true. Today we were whisker off. You know, the car had a slight push. I couldn't get in the gas quite as soon as I wanted to. We were able to hang there, but I wasn't able to come off down the bottom where I needed to be to get under some of those cars. And everything went our way. They got a little rough up front. Everybody trying the last 2 laps for the win, and we were in the position you had to be to take advantage, you know.
It was incredible, and for my first time in the Modifieds, I really feel good about it. And I was just presented the Fred DeSaro Performance Award, and it's a very special award because that's why the car is numbered the way that it is.
Dick Houlihan jumped into an early lead in the Lusso number 15, the Pro 4 feature event of competition. As LeMay was setting the pace at the front of this field, the challenge was already on as car number 97, Ken Hurt, was trying to hold off the best of them. Then it was Sam Stern hunted down by Richard Savory and Houlihan who tried to thread the needle to get to the front. Stern would make a bold move to the bottom and take over position number 1. Richie Savory would follow through in hot pursuit with car number 9 as once again LeMay was forced out of the number 1 spot. Then it was Dan Meserve to run strong to the inside with car number 7, passing his own automobile driven by Robbie Clark. Off the turn, Stern would get crossed up, come back across the track, literally hit Savory. LeMay and Meserve was involved. No doubt about it, Joe LeMay was not pleased with the situation. He felt that he was a sure contender for the victory. But Lady Luck had casted its stone, and so hadn't it casted the same stone on car number 9 for Savory and the 09 for Sam Stern. Back to green, it was Robbie Clark now in command. Meserve was running in the number 2 spot and challenging with car number 1. Single file, the story was pretty much at the front of the field, but Rob Clark would hold on and win with the Citgo number 11. Finishing in second was Dan Meserve Jr. over Billy Schultz in third, Rick Houlihan in fourth, and Carl Erickson to round out the top 5. The distance was 25 laps in the Pro Stock division, and Wayne Darling would bring the field to green as they head into turn number 1. It was Darling on the bottom, but quickly moving out in front, it was Prescott to set the pace. Jim McCallum was on a roll, and so wasn't Roger Godin with car number 45. As Jerry Marquis would thread the needle through traffic down beneath Jeff Zeidema, trying to get to the front pack of cars into turn number 1. Then suddenly Dick Houlihan would get crossed up and out of shape. Dave Caruso would squeak by with car number 1X. It was McCallum who'd then have a problem and falter initially and move to the outside of the racetrack. The field would rumble by as McCallum's hopes had suddenly ended. Then Jim Rosenfield would go spinning with car number 44. It was then Wayne Darling who'd be involved with car number 05. Back to green, it was car number 17 for Chris Prescott to set the pace. Roger Godin was still hunting him down, and now Mark Farina was setting in the 3rd spot. Then suddenly, a little bit crossed up off the turn, Pettis would have a problem, then Roger Godin would go spinning with car number 45. Godin would slam the dirt barrier to the infield area, but all would be okay. It was Prescott and Marquis who was now duking out at the front of this field, and it was Marquis who was running an impressive line on the bottom with car 73. Prescott would drift up just a bit, and Marquis would take over the number 1 spot. It was Farina up to the 3rd spot when Houlihan was trying to get dialed in and moving from the back of the pack. Houlihan and Jim Boniface were trying to thread the needle through traffic, coming up on Ron Pettis as they come off the turn, sandwich play, and Pettis would be slammed to the wall hard with car number 45X. Ron Pettis was out of the competition with a severely damaged race car. But back up front, it was Marquis when suddenly Mark Farino and Rosenfield would make contact as Rosenfield would slam the wall hard. The officials would then send car number 52X for Mark Farino back to the pit area, disqualified from the event. But when it was back to green, it was Marquis who dominated the racing action to hold on for the checker. Finishing in the number 2 spot was Chris Prescott over Jim Boniface in 3rd, Dave Caruso in 4th, and Jim Rosenfield to round out the top 5. The late model feature event saw car number 28, Mike LeVetri, quickly jump out in front. Jim Ablajanis was trying to reel him in the front pack of cars into turn number 1. Scott Poirier would then get a little crossed up down the back straightaway. Bobby G would back out of it, and Ed Harrington would get a little bit out of shape with car number 09. Then Tony Sylvester was off the pace with a mechanical problem with car 38. Down the front straightaway, Harrington get crossed up, Scott Poirier and Tommy Tagg. Everything would scramble as there'd be parts and debris literally all over the racetrack in turn number 1. But back to the front pack of cars, it was Ricky Shawn who was challenging Mike LeVetri. Down the back straightaway, Leo Ben Adams would tag the wall hard with the Tiger number 5. Severe damage done to the front end of this machine, once contending for the victory. Caution back out on the field, and this would tighten things back up as car number 5 for Leo Adams was brought back to the center of the infield. But LeVetri was the star of this show with car number 28, when Jim Mavlajanis would literally go up in smoke and lose an engine with car number 90. The Cliff Nelson Racing Engine's car was now out of the competition. Down the front straightaway, it was Herb Bennett who'd go spinning with car number 64. Bennett would then slide down to the bottom side of the racetrack as Brad Boisenault would make contact, and so would Ron Evans with car number 20. But to the wire, the story was being told. Mike LeVetri was setting the pace and looking at the checker. He would take down the impressive victory. In for second was Ricky Shawn, and third would go to Roy Scott Hanks over Chuck Zantoski and Bob Gauman. The late model division was filled with great racing action, and what about Ronnie Rocco in that exciting finish in the Winston Racing Series Modifieds? Well, next we'll be taking a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll be taking a look at great dirt track competition, and Brian Danko will file another special edition of Stopwatch. Welcome back to Race Week. There's no question about it, the modifieds were real impressive here at the Thompson Speedway. Well, next, Brian Danko is going to take a look at qualifying procedures, the do's and don'ts from the Thompson International Speedway for Stopwatch.
Welcome to Stopwatch. I'm Brian Danko. Well, here we are at the beautiful Thompson International Speedway as we're getting set for the second modified tour race of the 1990 season. One of the hot topics that's been discussed here at Thompson this weekend has been the procedure used to qualify the NASCAR modified tour cars. As you know, all NASCAR modified tour events use time trial system. But here at Thompson, they were going to use the time trial system only to set up the heat races. The fastest qualifier in time would start first in the heat race, with the second fastest qualifier in time starting on the pole in the second heat race. Then they were going to have the cars redraw from positions 1 through 12. Well, that wasn't on the official entry blank used for the Thompson race here, so they couldn't do it. But we asked Don Honig, the owner and promoter of the Thompson International Speedway, why they wanted to use a procedure like that for the NASCAR Modified Tour.
Well, we look out for the competitors, but you must remember, Brian, we can't always consider the top 6 or 10 time trial competitors. We have another 25 or 30 race drivers who compete and make these programs. So we have to give consideration to everyone in the field. And it's been my feeling over the years of modified racing, we've always run qualifying heats. The race fans in New England are accustomed to seeing this type nature of qualifying and so forth. And, they're paying the tab. They're paying a lot of money to see these major race events now. We feel we need to give the race fan, an opportunity to see these drivers.
I'm really not sure just exactly what's going to happen in 1990, especially if things keep continuing the way that they are. The racetracks are telling us how we're going to run our show. 1989 was very successful.
I have only one car right at the moment, so any heat action damage would be very severe for our team at this present time.
Well, I don't like it. I liked it the way it was last year. The top 6 should redraw. Lock them in. Don't have to run no heat races or nothing. And they get a track where they have a lot of cars. Do it the way they did last year. Take 10 cars and then redraw. That's the way it should be. I don't think the guys that run so hard, spend that kind of money and work on a car that run that good in time trials should have to run a heat race.
At the ice break we felt we give it a shot and see what would happen. And I don't feel they're all unhappy with it. We had a couple of complaints, but overall I feel the fellas are, happy and content.
So we've heard now from Don Honig and a few of the top drivers. But my own opinion is, why should Ricky Fuller, who won the Busch qualifying time and won his race, have to draw out of a hat? That would be like telling Kenny Schrader, who qualified the fastest at Daytona and won the Twin 125, that he would have to draw out of a hat and possibly start 12th. I don't think it's a fair system, and I think NASCAR and all the tracks should come up with a set system that can be used at all 23 tracks. For Stopwatch, I'm Brian Danko.
Thanks, Brian. Well, next we're going to be taking a look at the dirt season kickoff, as Brian Spade will file this report from Cayuga County Speedway in Weedsport, New York.
The big blocks are on the track and set for the B. Arduitz season opener. With their 2 heat wins, Pat Ward and Danny Johnson earned the front row. The Ryans Express number 28J established its dominance at the start of the 35-lap feature. 1987 Mr. Dirt Small Block champion Kurt Van Pelt became the first casualty on a day which proved to be rain-free despite the threat of showers. The damp air left the track tabletop smooth, the perfect condition for 16,000 screaming horses. As Danny Johnson raced out front looking for his 3rd Cayuga County opener win in a row, his brother Alan was searching for his first victory in 2 years. That's right, 2 years at the Weedsport Oval. Bob McCready had a rough day. Still, he managed to fight his way through the field, battling 3 wide with Jeff Trombley and Mike Jeffrey. The racing was tight enough to send Mike Colston in a tailspin in turn 3 that collected former Mr. Dirt champ Jack Johnson, Bobby Barron, and John Ventura. Still, through it all, Colston drove off without a scratch. For Jack Johnson, though, it was the end of a frustrating day. Hold on, what's that? Smoke out of Danny Johnson's car? Danny has snapped a power steering belt, and he's out of it. Is this a sign of things to come? Finally, on the ensuing green flag, Joe Plazek hopped Alan Johnson's front end and just hit the 4th turn wall. With Danny out of it, that set up a controversial restart.
I like Dave a lot, but I felt that he jumped me going into 3, And so I stopped on it and slid into him a little bit, and we tapped. I was incidental, but them things happen, I guess.
That jolt gave Pat Ward just enough room. With a failing motor in his 6-year-old show car Speed Shop Dirt Modified, Ward held on to capture his first Cayuga County win after 17 years of trying.
Thanks, Brian. Well, it's good to see the Dirt Series back in action once again. Well, that's going to kind of wrap up this edition of Race Week. There's no doubt about it, this has been the coldest and one of the worst weather conditions for any icebreaker event we've ever seen, and that's really saying something for the weather conditions on this past weekend. Next week, the Modified Tour will move to the sunny south. It's the highest-paid modified race that they've ever competed in. It'll be held at the Richmond International Raceway, and it's guaranteed to be one of the most exciting open-wheel race ever run in the history of modified racing. In addition to that, we'll be visiting Lee, USA, and take a look at the Coors Tour and a whole lot more. Until then, we say take care, and we'll see you again next time for the best in motorsports right here with us on Race Week. Take care. Bye-bye now.